Good day each and everyone, most especially to our subject teacher, Miss Ryan Ismael Beda. We are the Group 8 and the topic that we will be discussing is entitled Further Analysis of the Concept. So in this lesson, we will be able to know the notion of essence in the nature of universals. Introduction. Dialectic is the archaic name of logic. It is a discipline of philosophy concerned with the principles of reasoning, to situate logic in the study of philosophy. It is fitting that a cursory presentation about philosophy be done, specifically on the matters of meaning, origin, and divisions. This chapter takes as its focus the third mental operations called reasoning in the process it involves. So, dialectic. Well, when we say dialectic or dialectics, it is a term used to describe a method of philosophical argument that involves some sort of contradictory process between opposing sides. It is a discourse between two or more people holding different points of view about a subject but wishing to establish the truth through reasoned argumentation.
A-sense. In connection with the predicables and definition, the term a-sense has a more predicted sense than it often had in previous one chapters. We have often used a-sense in a broad sense in which it signifies what a thing is. In any way whatsoever, according to broad meaning of a-sense, it we grasp what a thing is, no matter how vaguely or indeterminately, even if we grasp it only as a vague and indeterminate something, or as something big, something colored, something far away, and so on. We grasp it a sense or quiddity. For instance, we know a horse only as something brown. We know what the horse is, at least insofar as it is something brown. Hence we grasp its essence, this broad sense of the word. But in connection with the predicables and definition, we use essence in the strict or proper sense, in which it includes only the basic intelligible elements of the comprehension of a concept, but does not include the derived elements. For instance, the essence in this sense of a triangle include figure bounded by three straight lines meeting by twos on a plane, but does not include enclosing three interior angles. The three lines of a triangle are looked upon as prior to the three angles and more basic than they. If you think of the three lines meeting by twos of 3 points on a plane, you think of what a triangle is primarily and necessarily as a consequence of having this essence, as a consequence, that is, of the 3 points meeting by twos of at 3 points on a plane. A triangle has 3 interior angles. We do not think of the 3 angles as the reason why a triangle has 3 straight lines as side, but of the 3 straight lines as the reason why it has the 3 angles. Similarly, the essence in the strict sense of man is a rational animal, rather than speaking animal or tool-using animal. True, denotes speaking and tool-using subface to differentiate man from all other kinds of animals. The reason for this is that a rational animal is looked upon as prior to and more basic than speaking animal, tool-using animal, and so on. Man is not a rational animal because he can speak and use tools. Rather, he can speak and use tools because he is a rational animal. Speaking and using tools may be reasons for our knowing that he is a rational animal, since we can reason from man's properties and activities to his essence, but they are not the reason for his being rational animal. Our explanation of universals, of the predicables, and of definition will throw rather lights on the nature of essence. Number 2, universal as abstract. In previous chapters, we often use the word universal as synonymous with distributed and as opposed to particular and singular. A term and concept are universal in this sense if they stand for each of their inferiors, that is, if they stand for each of the subject that they can be applied to. We should now use the word universal not as synonymous with distributed, but as synonymous with one meaning of abstract, except that universal, unlike abstract, is used both as a noun and an adjective. Abstraction, as we saw in chapter 11, consists in considering aspect of a thing while omitting other aspect. Now, a universal, as we understand the word in the present chapter, is a concept expresses the essence, quality, or nature of many really distinct individual subjects, but leaves their differences entirely unexpressed in expresses just an essence and nothing else. The concept man, for instance, is a universal, and what is signified by man. In such an essence, the essence man is found simultaneous in Peter, Paul, John, and Mary. Peter is a man, Paul is a man, John is a man, and Mary is a man, at least in the sense that she is a subject having a human nature. Peter, Paul, John, and Mary are for many completely distinct individual subjects. Peter is not Paul, Paul is not John, and so on. They not only differ from one another in being each different individual, but by innumerable other differences, while they differ, for instance, in sex, age, height, and weight, in ability, virtue, and in attainments, in race, place of residence, and social status. Man expresses the essence, nature, or quality of each of them in so far as they are rational animals and nothing more, and leaves innumerable common attributes together with all their individual differences entirely unexpressed. The concept man then in universal because it expresses only what can exist concretely, and at the same time in each of many distinct individual subjects, and however much these subjects differ from one another in other aspects, the essence man can be predicated of each of them in exactly the same sense. Let us compare the way the transcendental concept being is predicated of Peter, Paul, John, and Mary with the way man is predicated of them. We have already seen that man has exactly the same sense when it is predicated of each of them, although they differ from one another in age, sex, height, weight, and so on. These differences are attributes of man, but none of these differences is man. and consequently none of these differences is expressed by the concept man. The concept of being, however, expresses that in its interior it expresses not only the notes in which they are similar to one another, but also their differences. These differences are being since they are something and consequently they are expressed by the concept being now, since things actually are different from one another, and since being expressed their differences, the meaning of being shift according to the differences among things. From this, it is clear that being in analogous in relation to its inferiors, whereas man is in vocal. The distinction between direct and reflect universal is of importance in logic and in other branches of philosophy as well. It is a special case of the more general division of concept into first and second intention. A direct universal is a concept signifying an absolute essence, that is an essence, nature, or quality, as such abstracted from all individualizing conditions and considered without reference to the mode of existence it has either in the mind or in things. You grasp the absolute essence, man, for instance. If you think of man and nothing else, not of Peter or Mary, or this man or that man, or something man, or all men, but just man, completely prescinding from all orders of existence and expressing only the comprehension of the essence man without any consideration of its extension. Nothing but individual full determined natures can exist in the real order. Consequently, direct universals or absolute essence cannot exist as such except in the mind. Nevertheless, all that a direct universal signifies can exist in the real order. All that it signifies has been abstracted from things and can therefore be realized in things and predicated of them. A direct universal, as we have seen, is considered without reference to its inferiors. It can be referred to its inferiors, but its meaning is independent of any such reference. Suppose now that we go one step further and the actual refer it to its inferiors. Suppose we consider an essence as capable of being realized in many subjects and of being predicated of them. What we grasp then is an reflect universal. A reflect universal, therefore, is an essence, nature, or quality considered with the reference to the individuals in which it is verified and to its potential predicability. It includes not only the comprehension of an essence but also its multiplicability and its predicability, that it
Number 3, the
is
predicables. The predicables are a classifications of reflect universal based on the 5 ways in which they express nature of subjects of which they are predicated. They are listed as species, genus, specific difference in logical property, and logical accident. These names primarily signify the relationships of universals to their inferiors, or the 5 ways in which they are used as predicates. But these names also signify the universals themselves. Thus, we not only say that man is predicated of John as his species, but also that man and his species. It means the predicable are the relations involved in saying something is one Of many, they express the five basic ways in which one thing can be said of many as of subject by way of formal predication. Such predication manifests a formal perfection of the subject, and otherwise unexpressed determinations and is opposed to mere predicates of identity. It is also things that can be predicated of many whatever they are, their own nature, be they universal words, concept, or universal entities. So the predicables are classifications of reflect universals, since we are here viewing universals with reference to their inferiors. With reference, so that is to the subjects in which the essence they signify can be realized and of which they can be predicated. We're considering not only their comprehension but their also extension and predicability as well. What I've said, it is also things that can be predicated. Many things, whatever they are, it's either the own nature, universal words or concept, or universal entities. The first thing we should need to do or give is what we call general survey. In this, it defines each of them very briefly and explaining why there have five predicables. General survey. Every universal's predicate expresses the nature of the subject of which it is predicated in one of the following ways. It either expresses its essence in the strict sense, or else it doesn't or it does not. So if it expresses the essence of the subject, it either expresses all the basic constitutive notes or the fully determined essence, and is the predicated of the subject as is. So we have the five predicables, and those are the species, genus, specific difference, property, and logical accident. This following is all about schema displays that the structure of this analysis and of certain keywords that will help us to understand and remember the definitions of each of the predicables. So letter A, the distinction between the notes that constitute an essence and those that do not constitute it but merely accompany it. Letter B, the distinction between the first four of the predicables which are necessary to the subject and the fifth predicable which is not necessary to it. An understanding of these distinctions is an absolutely necessary prerequisite to an understanding of definition and of the very important division of proposition. So we have here the letter B, which is detailed explanations of each predicable. We shall prefix a schema or the category of substance to our detailed explanation of each of the predicables. This will help us see the relationship of species, genus, and the difference among one another, and understand various distinctions made in the definitions given below. So all the predicables are universal. Consequently, all of them express the nature of many really distinct individuals and can predicted of each individuals in exactly the same sense. We have here the first predicables, which is the species. So species, in the strict and proper sense, it is a universal that expresses the completely determined essence of its inferiors, and only that. It gives a complete answer to the question, what is a thing essentially? But does not express attributes by which individuals having the same essence differ from one another. The first predicables among the five, so when we say species, it is the basic unit of taxonomy, and it contains a group of interbreeding animals which produce fertile offspring, or relatively smaller subclass of the genus. The word completely determined essence must be understood correctly. They do not refer to the determinations that an essence or nature must have in order to exist in the real order. And the concept man, for instance, is a species in the relation to all individual men. It is expressing only what a thing has to be in order to be thought of as a man, but does not express that innumerable attributes. There are here the nationality, parentage, place of birth, place of residence, sex, height, weight, age, and etc. That is belong to a man because he is this or that man rather than because he is really simple man. There are the difference between species and genus. So unlike the genus, only of individuals that do not differ from one another essentially. So between a species in the strict sense and the individuals of which it is predicated, no other species in the strict sense can intervene. In a broader sense, each genus beneath the supreme genus of a category, for instance, beneath substance. It is what we call a species in relations to the genus immediately above it. Thus, animal is the genus of the species called man, is itself a species in relations to the genus what we call organism. Subdivisions of universals, both are the genera and species. It is based on the presence or absence of the accidental attribute, likewise what we call species in a broad sense. In this sense, we have here the species of triangle, the two species of triangle, which is the green triangle and non-green triangle.
Good day, I am Naima encoding reporter number 3. Number 2, genus. A genus is a universal that expresses the incompletely determined essence of its inferiors, giving an incomplete answer to the question, what is a thing essentially? Ang isang genus ay nagpapahayag ng kakanyahan ng mga inferior nito nang walang katiyakan na kung ano ang ipinapahiwatig nito ay maaaring ipahiwatig ng mga bagay na naiiba sa isa't isang particular. Ng mga bagay, iyon ay na nabibilang sa iba't ibang mga species. A genus is a taxonomic category ranking used in biological classification that is below family and above species. The genus is the generic name whereas the species is the specific name in a binomial nomenclature. For example, Allium cepa, commonly known as onion. The allium is the generic name whereas the cepa is the specific name. So consider from the point of view of extension, genus is defined as broader class made up of narrow classes, that is of more than one species. A genus must be either a supreme genus, an intermediate genus, or a lowest genus. A supreme genus is one that is not a subdivision of any other genus, for instance, substance. A lowest genus or genus infimum has no other genus intervening between it and species in the strict sense, for instance, animal in relation to man. An intermediate genus is one that intervenes between a supreme genus and lowest genus, body and organism. From another point of view, genus is divided into proximate and remote. Ang isang proximate genus ay direkta sa itaas ng isang species o ibang genus, kaya ang hayop is the proximate genus of the species man and organism is the proximate genus of the lower genus animal. Proximate is derived from proximus, the Latin word of nearest or closest. A remote genus is one that has one or more other genera intervening between it and the species or lower genus is relation to which it is being considered. Number 3, deference. A deference is a universal that expresses the constitutive note that distinguishes a species from a genus or a genus from a higher genus. Ang deference ay isang universal na nagpapahayag ng constitutive note na nagpapakilala sa isang species mula sa genus nito o isang genus mula sa isang mas mataas na genus. A specific difference is a difference that distinguishes a species from its proximate genus as rational distinguishes man from animal. Ang isang generic na pagkakaiba ay isang pagkakaiba na nagpapakilala sa isang species o isang mas mababang genus mula sa mga bagay na naiiba mula dito sa pangkalahatang ngunit nabibilang sa parehong mas mataas na genus. Kaya ang sentient, animate at corporeal ay mga generic na pagkakaiba ng man dahil ang bawat isa sa kanila ay nakikilala ang isang genus na kinabibilangan ng tao mula sa susunod na mas mataas na genus. We must not think that a difference is added to a genus as paint is added to a bun or cream to coffee. So let us consider another example. The genus of equilateral triangle is a triangle and its difference is equal-sided. We can think of the number of the sides without thinking of their quality. Hence, there is a mental distinction between the two. Nevertheless, the equal sides are really the same as the three sides and vice versa.
I am Nema P. Mariong, reporter number 4. Logical property. Logical property is a universal that expresses not instance of the subject of which it's predicate, but an attribute that accompanies this instance necessarily. A property in a stretched sense is connected with a subject conceptually in such a way that a subject cannot even thought of without contradiction as not having that property. Logical specific property in this stretched sense express the attribute that results with logical necessary from the complete determined instance of the subject of which it is predicate. It arises from the genus alone. It therefore realized concretely in every individual having the specific nature and only in such individuals capable of speech, social, reasonable, and or specific properties of mind. Logical accident. A logical accident is an attribute that not conceptually connected with the instance of the subject that is predicate of is compatible with the subject, for otherwise if could not be predicate of it at all, but the subject can be thought of without contradiction as not having the attribute, showing how we abstract from difference as we rise from individual being through space in genera to the supreme genius, and how we unify our knowledge of things by referring to be White standing an American 6 feet tall as on logical accident in relation. The Aristotelian categories or predicate means. A study of categories will likewise throw light on the function of the copula by revealing how its meaning varies according to variation in the meaning of the predicate. A final fruit of our study of categories will be an acquaintance with certain very important philosophical terms which a brief treatment of the Aristotelian categories or predicate means will complete our background for the study of definition and logical division. It will do this by clarifying the notion of genus and by defining our understand of the law of the universality comprehension and extension. We simply must understand in order to read Aristotelian Thomistic philosophy.
Good day, my name is Norisa Stilumayon, BA 1A, so my report is substance. Substance is the which exists in itself without requiring another being as a subject of interestance. First, substance cannot be predicate in the straight and proper sense, but it's the ultimate subject of all perfection and all predication. Substance, ang sangkap ay ayang umiiral sa kanyang sarili nang hindi nangangailangan ng isa pang nilalang bilang isang paksa ng mana. Ang first substance naman ay unang sangkap ay hindi maaring maging isang panaguri o mahigpit at wastong kahulugan, ngunit ito ang sukdulang paksa ng lahat ng pagiging perfecto at ng lahat ng hula. The sake on substance, all of this can be predicate and all but for highest can likewise be subject. So, lahat ng ito ay maaaring panaguri at lahat na maliban lang sa apat na pinakamataas ay maaari ding maging paksa. First ka, mental accident express being or more accurate imperfection or mode of being that cannot exist in the for itself but whose nature is just that it must exist. First ka, mental accident ay nagpapahayag ng pagiging o mas tumpak na isang pagiging perfecto o paraan ng pagiging na hindi maaring umiral at sa apat na kanyang sarili ngunit kung saan ang kalikasan ay tulad ng dapat itong umiral. Quantity is that by which is material substance as parts G or part in on account which is big or small, long of feet, thick or and so on. Ang quantity ay kung saan ang isang material na sangkap ay may mga bahagi na mga bahag dahil kung saan ito ay malaki o maliit na haba ng feet, makapal o at iba pa. Quality is the accident that characteristic from within the nature that is already substantially complete. Ang quality ay isang aksidente na ilalarawan mula sa loob ng kalikasan na kumpleto. Relation is the order that one being has towards another. Notice that as distinct things is a substance but as quality, quantity, quality, relation, and so on. Ang relasyon naman ay ang pagkasunod-sunod ng isang bagay patungo sa isa pang paunawa na ang isang umiiral na bagay ay isang sangkap. May mga relasyon sa kalidad ng dami at iba pa. Letter B, definition of logical category. Now that we have considered the categories as expressing mode of being that is from point of view of metaphysics, we are ready to consider that are as orderly classification of concept and from the point of view of logic. Definition of logical category. Ngayon na isinaalang-alang namin ang mga kategorya bilang pagpapahayag ng mode o ng pagiging punto ng view ng metafisika.